Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. Today we're going to be going over the Epsilon Wave number 2, a 1985 comic. But before we get into that, I'd like to show you some of my own stuff. This is Random Access, and it's a 12-page, full-size black and white comic that I make every month. It's been color before, and I hope to get it to be color again. It's up to issue 22 at the moment, and you can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin, or Alex Turbin rather, and just for $3 a month, and you also get a sticker. You could also go to my website, alexanderturbin.com, and you can check them out there. There's almost all the random accesses there, from volume 1 and volume 2, and there's also Mutandis and Forlorn and all of the Queller and all of my other comics that I've done in the past. So yeah, you can check it out there, or you can check me out at AlexTurbin044101 at Instagram. So the Epsilon Wave. So I've done a lot of comics from the 80s and 90s, and usually black and white independent comics. This is actually from IC, Independent Comics. That's the name of their publishing group or whatever, publishers. But I've done a few power comics, what I think are power comics, what could be power comics. This is definitely is a power comic, but it's a they really put all of their resources and their money and their time and everything into this. So even though I think it is a power comic, some of you may disagree with me, but I definitely think it is. And so there's a certain amount of, I hate to say skill level in comics, in power comics, but I think that really is kind of just what it breaks down into, is the skill, or maybe, I don't know. Let's get into this and we'll break it down and see if you guys agree with me that it is a power comic. So the Epsilon Wave number 2. Starts off with a nice intro letter from the publisher or whatever, and he really basically doesn't say anything. He says he wants to introduce some of the creators of it, and then he's like, just kind of says their name. He says, oh yeah, and he's a nice guy, but he doesn't say where they're from or anything like that, which is kind of interesting. And also I noticed that because there's two different stories. One is the Epsilon Wave, and the second one is Sea Dragon. And you have the creator script is Tom Floyd, and then you have the story outlined by Robert Buckley. And I don't really understand how that can happen if you're the creator, excuse me, and you wrote the script. What did Robert Buckley do actually? Did he make some names? Did he come up with the plot? I kind of wish I knew exactly what was happening. But I mean, there's also an editor and a letterer. Jerry Parker is the letterer. Editor is Carl Knapp, who is also the creator writer of the second story, Sea Dragon. The pencils is Tom Floyd again. So he pencils and does the inks and everything for both stories. Hand painted by Joni Parker on both of these. So it is kind of interesting, and we'll touch on that because it's not just it's not just coloring, but it's painted, and really you kind of can tell that it's not just flat colors or anything like that. And the letterer is Jerry Parker on both of these, which is one of the most interesting things about the book. I'm going to say that a lot. I'm going to say interesting at a lot of their decisions and a lot of the way that they're doing things. But let's get into the story first. So it starts out with a building being blown apart, and at like the one of the top stories. And this is really a pretty cool panel and pretty cool illustration. You can really tell exactly what's going on, and it really has a lot of excitement and stuff. But let's get into that later on. And then there's what apparently is the villain. He's Tango in Texas City is the name of the story. He is I can't remember what his name is. He's Fires. No, he's Ballistic Bombardier. He's a bombardier. I didn't read the first issue, so I kind of don't know what's going on. Um, but this is almost like it's a not a continuation of the first story or the first issue, but it's kind of a its own story. So I think they went into, even though there's only 4 issues, I think they went into it that each issue is going to be its own self-contained kind of thing, which is kind of interesting and kind of cool. Because I mean, a lot of comics that are indie don't do that. They have a continuing story, and it's really this is more comic book like the top two do would DC and Marvel, where they have yes, they'll have stories that continue from issue to issue, but they also have each issue has its own self-contained story. So you see the bombardier, and he blew up one of the buildings, top floors and stuff, and then he kind of takes off, and then some police detectives show up at the explosion, which I don't know why there's all kinds of regular cops don't show up first, but the detectives do. And then one of them is going to try to help any of the victims that were blown up in the explosion, and the other one's going to go to the roof because that's where the bombardier went, and somehow he knows that. So he goes to the roof trying to find the bombardier. Bombardier kicks him in the face and gets away. He flies off. So then it goes back down to where the other detective saved some of the people from the explosion, and they go to, it's flash forwards to the hospital where one of the characters, I guess he's okay, he's bandaged up or whatever, but the detective is trying to get him to talk about the experience of what happened and who it could have been. And then the detective tells him about a character or 3 friends that were back in Vietnam, and I can't tell whether this is I guess it is him. So he was in the building, and it blew up, and he was back in Vietnam. There were 3 friends, and they went through Vietnam together, and they went through all those horrors. But then they had this final mission where they were just kind of overrun by the VC, and one of them was killed, and the other 2 thought he was dead, and so they kind of left. Which you really are kind of knowing that the bombardier is the one that they left for dead, because he says early on that earlier that you can't just leave your friends behind for dead or something like that. So then they flash forward or back to the conversation, and they're talking about who all of these characters are. Jason Fry is I don't know. He's one of the people that got attacked. I guess this bombardier is attacking different people. And yeah, Jason Fry is the one that is dead. He's the one that they left back in Vietnam and they thought was dead. So they just kind of keep having their conversation, and then I'm not sure. Mr. Williams, that's the guy that he's talking to, and then Arthur Williams leaves the hospital against doctor's advice. So this is him from the explosion in the building, and he's at home and he's like, I'll just watch some TV, even though he just came back from the hospital, I guess. He realizes that his other friend, the other guy, I think, that was at war with him, was killed, and his family was killed, and he just kind of freaks out, and he goes back to, and this is where the first issue really kind of comes into play, because apparently there was a doctor and a sleeping disorders treatments and some kind of medical facility. So he's trying to kind of study something about this Arthur Williams guy, and apparently last time they did some studies, he went through the treatment or whatever, and this guy came out Nightmare. And so basically when he goes to sleep, he gets all of his he has some sort of injection in the back of his neck, and he goes to sleep and Nightmare comes out. So this is the superhero, Nightmare, and this is the alter ego, Arthur Williams, and then it flashes to the Bombardier, and the Bombardier's, at his house or something. I don't know. He's at his house, but he's making a film, a video, kind of threatening the city and telling him that he's going to destroy everything and stuff like that. And then it goes to the detective, and he kind of is in his office trying to figure out some of the things that's going on when Nightmare shows up. And basically, he says, I need a ride to, because this all takes place in Texas, and I think they're in Dallas. And so then they want to go to Austin, which is, I guess, pretty far away because Texas is huge. And so it's pretty far away. And so the detective, somehow, because I guess he's has friends in the government or something, he gets a fighter jet to give them a ride from Dallas to Austin. I don't know. They say Texas City, but I don't know. I think they're saying Austin, or Houston, or some other Texas city anyway. So that's the end of the scene where they're going to the airport to get onto the jet, the fighter jet, to go to the next city to find the Bombardier. So then it cuts to another scene where this angelic figure, I think she must have been in the first issue, and she's flying above the city, but below her, she must have some sort of empathic ability, because she knows that something's going on, and it's a robbery going on in progress where some guy in a mask has a gun, and he's at a convenience store, and he's robbing it. But he doesn't just rob it. He's like, I'm going to give you something to remember me by. And he shoots him in the arm. So this angelic figure feels the bullet wound going through the cashier's arm, and she kind of freaks out. The hood takes off, and he's running outside, and the angelic figure comes down to the earth and just kind of smacks him around with her wings and her arms, and she's got like these bionic arms, I guess. And so the cashier then thanks the angelic figure, and she takes off because she keeps saying, I'm not supposed to talk to anybody, I'm not supposed to look at anybody or anything. So I think she had some interaction in the last issue with some character that said, keep things on the down low, and don't let everybody know that you're an angel or flying person, whatever. So then it cuts to the jet, and they're flying to Houston or wherever, and they're just kind of talking about the kind of clearance that you have to get to all this stuff. And then instead of just landing, because I guess they wanted him to circle around and look for the Bombardier or whatever. But Nightmare instead hits the ejection button and makes them eject out of the cockpit. The detective too, because the detective's with him, and they fly to the ground, or they float to the ground in their parachute. And I guess this Nightmare can become like a shadowy figure or something, and which the detective doesn't really know much about its powers or much about him or anything. He's just kind of going on faith that he's a good guy and that they're like kind of a team up or whatever. They make their way to the oil fields where the Bombardier has started blowing stuff up. He wants to ruin the economy, the Texan economy, and one of the billionaires' livelihood or whatever. So he's been blowing stuff up, which is really what Nightmare and the detective want to find the Bombardier and stop him, kind of. So they do make it there, and they see the Bombardier, and the Bombardier takes a shot at the detective, but Nightmare uses his nightmaric powers and stops the blast, and kind of says, "You're Jason Fry. I'm coming for you." And he knows who he is, but Jason Fry doesn't know who Nightmare is, and he uses his black shadowy razor blades things to kind of fling at him and stuff, and which is kind of cool. And then they go back and forth using their Bombardier powers and his I guess he doesn't have any laser powers or anything, but he kind of takes a shot, and they just kind of fight, and throws some fisticuffs, and Nightmare finally gets the better of him. And but the Bombardier has one last thing. He's going to, oh no, it's not there yet. He's in the fire, and he's like, he comes out of the fire. That's what's happening. He's coming out of the fire, and he's using his hand to like shoot another blast of fire or whatever. And then it cuts to an interlude, and it's at a museum, and these two guards are talking to each other about the exhibit and stuff, and they come across a couple of guys in their super villainy kind of way, and they're stealing an artifact, and it's some sort of Celtic rod, and so it's like the triad and the master, and they turn the security guards into crystal, and they kind of blow up. And then so that ends the interlude. It's just a kind of a one-page interlude, which is what I kind of really like about this book, where it's not just the main bad guy versus the main good guy. It's going to have a lot of different bad guy characters doing their bad guy stuff, and the Nightmare character has to stop them. So it's kind of cool that they're setting up all of these different plot threads and stuff. So then it goes back to the fight between Bombardier and the Nightmare. Excuse me. And the detective takes a shot at him, but he's got armor on his one side. And so they're just kind of throwing fisticuffs back and forth. Pow, 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 pow. And finally, Nightmare throws him down on the ground, and he's going to smash him. But the detective says, stop, you're not going to kill him. We're going to take him in for justice. And Nightmare's like, fine, whatever, go ahead. But Bombardier has one last thing up his sleeve. And kind of like the Predator, he's going to blow himself up. And this is really a cool scene where the characters are trying to jump away from the explosion. But they make it, and Nightmare and the detective make it through the explosion. And the detective gets him a flight back to Dallas. I don't know how the detective gets back. I guess he hops back on the jet. And Nightmare is going to go back into the laboratory and turn back into Arthur Williamson. But there's a cry, there's a woman scream, and Nightmare smashes through the door, and that's how it ends. So it ends on a nice little cliffhanger. I'm not going to go into Sea Dragon because that's just kind of a lot more to go on. I actually liked Sea Dragon more than, so I might actually do a whole nother video of just the Sea Dragon. And let me know what you guys think. What would you like to see or hear the adventures of Sea Dragon, and let me know what you think. But it's definitely power as far as the art is concerned. There's no problems that I can see art-wise other than, I'm not going to say quality, because the artist uses every trick at his disposal. He uses different camera angles. He uses a variety of panels. He uses a lot of different techniques. He uses 3/4 views. He has straight on views. He's got a lot of things going on for him. He's got headshots. He's got full body shots. He's got far away shots. So he's as far as the tips and tricks of comics go, he's got a lot of that going for him, and I really think that he could be good, and I'm going to have to look him up and see if he did anything later on that became of noteworthy. But you can see that maybe he's a younger artist or something. Things just seem a little bit wonky, I guess, and that's where the Power Comics comes in. His eyes are they're just a little less pleasing for me anyway. I mean, I'm sure there's guys out there, I'm sure some of you guys watching this probably think that that's fantastic, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're into the Power Comics. But some of the things are a little bit wonky, and it's just, I feel like with a little bit more maybe work, not a little bit more work, but a little bit more seeing, because so much of drawing comics and doing comics is not just being able to draw a figure, but it's being able to draw a figure that's dynamic and also telling a story, but also it's going to be kind of pleasing to the eye. And a lot of this stuff, for me anyway, is just not really pleasing to the eye and pleasing to my eye anyway. I'm sure, like I said, a lot of you guys probably love this stuff. But some of this stuff, the facial features and stuff like that is just not what I would really call something that I'm really into. Other stuff that is really great. I mean, he's got some great hand gestures. He's got, like, this is a great panel here. The figures, two figures jumping away from the explosion. He's got some really dynamic panel creation, layouts, and stuff like that. And his motion is pretty good. So it's just some of this stuff is maybe I think some of it looks a little bit like my stuff. The hands actually are very dynamic and poses that I would think that I would do. So I don't know. I definitely think it's power, but it is something that a lot of you would enjoy, I think. So yeah, there you go. As for the writing is a little stiff. It's very in your face, it kind of tells you what's going on at the same time that the panel illustration is showing you what's going on. It's got very early 70s feel about it, about the storytelling. It's very basic. I guess that would be the biggest word for me. It's not hard to understand, and I think that's probably some of their issues, because the dialogue isn't really, it's not very organic. They kind of feel cardboard, stiff characters. They try to have a little bit of banter between some of the characters, but that banter sounds and feels a little bit wonky to me. So it's hard to say about whether I like the writing. Like I said, it's kind of clunky, but at the same time, it's not hard to follow. You can really follow it quite easily. You know exactly what's going on, even when it transitions from one scene to another without saying. Well, actually, there's a little bit of a blurb here as to what's going on in the different transitions. But it really, they change from scene to scene pretty eloquently. And yeah, so I'm going to say the writing's not horrible, but at the same time, it's not really fantastic. It doesn't really draw me in, and I'm not really loving all of the characters. So one of the things, the lettering is it's probably what makes it some of the most power. It's got these funky word balloons all over the place, especially here. This, like, what is this word balloon? It's not even a word balloon. It's a word paradigm. Is that how you would say, where it's a multifaceted kind of thing? But it's with a little bit of work and stuff like that. It's can be okay, and it's very clear. Like, all of the lettering is very clear, and they don't put any of the lettering in different mismatched places. It's very easy to read. I never had to go back and reread anything. I was very clear and concise as to where I was supposed to read next and what I was supposed to read next and all that stuff. I think just the balloon placement, the word balloon placement, and like, it's totally cool to have it interact with the background like that, but I don't really like this wonkiness. I think this could have been done in a different way. Maybe covered the feet a little bit more. But yeah, so I'm really, the lettering is probably one of the weaker points for me. The coloring is very odd. I can't tell what it was colored with. It kind of feels like looks like marker a little bit, but it also could be some watercoloring. And I'm not sure how they got it printed because it doesn't have the it's got like all of these different tones and different blending. There's different blending, and you can't really do that in traditional comic book printing. So I really don't know how they printed this, other than maybe some sort of copier or something like that, which would have been very interesting and expensive. Um, uh, it's it's not quite newsprint, but it's a newsprint uh, akin. So that's actually kind of cool. So it's a little bit newsprinty, but not completely newsprinty. Kind of like the stuff that I have. It's not like Marvel or DC newsprint though. Um, so I'm gonna review this, and I'm as you know, or maybe don't know, I rate Power Comics on a scale, or actually comics in general on a scale. If you're Marvel and DC and you put this out, I'm giving this like a 4 or a 3 or something like that. But it's just a bunch of guys, and they're not professionals, but they are really doing the best that they can, and they're trying really hard. Like I said, they're using all of the different tricks and tools in their belt to make this the best comics they can, even if some of the maybe the line work and the composition of the characters and the facial features and stuff like that are not exactly what I think is great. But a lot of it that, like I said, a lot of it that a lot of people would like. So it's hard to say. The coloring is really kind of good. I like the coloring actually, but it's a little wonky. And so that's my biggest thing about this book, is it's kind of wonky. So I grade things on a curve. I'm gonna give this a, as you know, if you've seen any of my videos, then I give a book special consideration. If I would go out and get another issue, then I give it a 7. That's like a baseline, because that entices me to go out and get another copy, get another issue, and that's really what you want out of a comic book that has multiple issues. You want the reader to want to go out and get more copies, and I really don't have that kind of thing in me. I'm not really going to go looking for more issues of this. That being said, if I saw this in the dollar bin, not this issue because I already have it, but if I saw 1, 3, or 4, I would probably get it, probably just a review on here, and not because I'm really enticed by the characters or the story or anything. So if I happen upon it, I might buy it, but maybe not. It would completely depend on what it was, how much it was. If it was a quarter or a dollar, then I might, but anything over $1, I'm not going to pay for it. So that being said, it's going to be under a 7. There's a lot of things I do like about this, and some of the wonkiness that I don't find pleasing. Some of the other stuff that I do like compensates for that. I do like a lot of their creativity and their kind of love for superheroes and supervillains and stuff like that. And their panel layouts and some of the things that they're trying to do, but maybe don't completely hit the nail on the head like they want to. I think probably the worst part for me is their faces. If the faces were a little bit more pleasing to me, I think I would give this over a 7. But I can't, because the faces are a huge part of it. So I'm thinking I'm going to give this a 6. So yeah, it's a 6, I think. Let me know what you guys think. Am I judging it too harshly, or am I giving it a fair score? So if you guys like this kind of content and you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, and giving me a thumbs up if you want to see more videos like this. And also let me know if you have an Epsilon wave. This is a pretty cool cover. I didn't go into the inking. I think the inking is pretty solid, actually. He could use a little bit more black spotting, and but the inking, I think, is fairly solid. It's very flowing and stuff. So that's kind of nice. It has a nice texture to it. Doesn't change my score. There's some things I would change. I would change this logo a little bit, but Yeah, let me know what you guys think if you think a 6 is too harsh. But thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.